Let me take you somewhere real for a second. Picture this, a room full of people, phones lit up like stars, everyone scrolling, posting, liking, improving. Now picture one person sitting in that same room, phone face down, just observing. No posts, no captions, no audience, just presence. In today's world, that person almost feels like a mystery, because we've been conditioned to believe that if it's not online, it doesn't exist. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if the ones who say less are actually living more? See, we live in a generation where validation travels faster than understanding, and silence is mistaken for invisibility. But some people have learned to step back from the noise, not because they're anti-social, not because they don't have something to say, but because they value peace over performance. They've mastered the art of keeping what's sacred, and in that quiet space they found something rare: freedom. Tonight I want to talk about that kind of mindset, the psychology of the ones who move without posting, who build without boasting, and who understand that real power doesn't need to be seen, it just needs to be lived. When we talk about inner fulfillment over validation, we're speaking about a mindset that's becoming rare in an era where attention has become a new form of currency. Most people move through their days unconsciously seeking acknowledgement, a like, a comment, a share, as proof that they matter. But the ones who don't post, the ones who live quietly and intentionally, are often the ones who've stepped away from that need. They operate from a different frequency, one that values inner growth over outward applause. Validation is a powerful drug. It gives a temporary high that mimics confidence, but fades as quickly as it comes. The psychology of people who don't chase that high is built on self-awareness. They've recognized that the hunger for validation can become an endless loop, one where your peace depends on how the world reacts to you. These individuals learn to break that loop by developing an internal source of satisfaction. Instead of asking, did they see me? They ask, did I grow from this? Their self-worth is not measured by external metrics, but by internal standards, how disciplined they've been, how honest they've remained with themselves, and how far they've come from who they used to be. This kind of mindset usually comes from a journey, not a decision made overnight. Many of these people once lived in that same cycle of sharing, posting, and refreshing, but over time, they began to notice how much of their energy was being traded for fleeting reactions. They realized that every post came with expectations, and every lack of response came with disappointment. When they began to remove themselves from that rhythm, they discovered something deeper: silence, and in that silence they met themselves again. That's when inner fulfillment begins, when you stop performing and start existing. Inner fulfillment is built through small, consistent acts of self-respect. It's waking up early to handle your business without feeling the need to document it. It's finding peace and progress that nobody else sees. It's working on your goals not because you want to announce them, but because you believe in them. These people don't need the world to witness their evolution because they're too busy living it. Their satisfaction comes from mastery, from knowing they're becoming better, sharper, and stronger, even if no one claps for it. Psychologically, this mindset builds a stronger sense of autonomy. When you stop depending on external approval, you reclaim control over your emotions. You're no longer swayed by how others perceive you. That freedom allows you to operate with more clarity. You start making choices based on what aligns with your purpose, not what aligns with your image. This creates a deeper connection to yourself, one that isn't filtered through public perception. People who don't post often understand that the truest form of peace comes from doing something meaningful without needing to prove it. It's not that they're against social media or expression. It's that they've learned to separate visibility from value. They don't equate being seen with being successful. They know that some of the most impactful growth happens in private, far from the noise. That kind of growth is sacred because it's not influenced by outside opinions. When you're not performing for an audience, your actions become more authentic. You can fail quietly, learn deeply, and rise slowly without the pressure of expectation. There's also a deeper emotional intelligence at play. People who find fulfillment within often understand that every post is a projection of a feeling: pride, loneliness, excitement, insecurity. By detaching from that habit, they've learned to process those emotions internally. Instead of seeking reassurance through public reaction, they face themselves. That inner work is uncomfortable but liberating. It teaches patience, humility, and strength. It replaces the quick rush of attention with the steady rhythm of purpose. The satisfaction that comes from this inner world is quieter but stronger. It doesn't fade overnight. It's the kind of peace that doesn't need validation because it's rooted in alignment. They move with confidence that doesn't shout. They don't need to announce every victory because their fulfillment is not transactional, it's spiritual. They know who they are, what they're doing, and where they're going, and that's enough. So when we see people who rarely post, it's not always because they have nothing to say. Often, it's because they've learned the art of keeping their energy directed inward. They're building, healing, and growing away from the spotlight. Their fulfillment doesn't need to be performed because it's already real. They've chosen the path of depth over display, peace over performance, and progress over proof, and that's a psychology that only a few have the patience to master. Privacy as power is a mindset rooted in restraint, awareness, and self-control. In a culture that rewards exposure, where every thought, meal, or milestone becomes content, choosing privacy is a quiet act of rebellion. It's not about secrecy or fear, it's about ownership. People who don't post on social media understand that once you share something publicly, it no longer belongs entirely to you. Your image, your words, your experiences, they become part of a collective conversation where others have the power to interpret, critique, or distort them, but keeping certain parts of their lives private. These individuals protect the authenticity and integrity of their story. They know not everything sacred should be seen. The psychology behind valuing privacy stems from self-awareness and emotional maturity. People who practice it have often experienced what happens when too much of their life becomes public. They've seen how quickly the world forms opinions, how easily intention can be misunderstood, and how fragile peace can become when others' perceptions start to shape your self-image. Over time, they begin to see privacy not as isolation, but as protection, a shield that guards their energy, focus, and sense of control. They're not hiding, they're conserving. In a world obsessed with visibility, they've learned that what's unseen can often be the most powerful. There's a certain power in not being easily read. When you're unpredictable, you hold leverage. People who don't post often move strategically because no one really knows what they're up to. This uncertainty gives them freedom to pivot, to experiment, to fail quietly, and to succeed without pressure. When your life isn't broadcasted, you move without interference. You don't have to perform for validation or live up to the image others have created of you. You exist in your own rhythm. And that privacy becomes a force field that keeps distractions and comparisons out. Psychologically, privacy also strengthens one's sense of self. When you live in public view, your identity can easily become a reflection of feedback. You start editing your behavior, language, or choices to fit what gets approval. But when you choose privacy, you give yourself room to think independently. You can question your motives, make mistakes, and grow without the weight of outside judgment. That freedom allows you to make more authentic decisions, choices that reflect your truth, not your audience's expectations. People who value privacy know that clarity is born in silence. They understand that not every process needs to be shared and not every thought needs a witness. The digital age has created an illusion that being visible is the same as being relevant. Yet, many of the most grounded and impactful individuals operate behind the scenes. They let their work, not their posts, speak for them. Their sense of power comes from restraint, from knowing they could share but choosing not to. This decision to stay low-key often amplifies their presence, because when you rarely reveal, what you do reveal carries weight. Privacy gives meaning to moments. It adds gravity to your words. When you speak less, people listen more. On a deeper level, privacy nurtures mental peace. Constant exposure can lead to anxiety, the feeling that you always have to update, prove, or maintain an image. People who opt out of that cycle reclaim their mental space. They no longer live in anticipation of approval or in fear of being forgotten. Their validation is internal, so their peace is stable. They find power in detachment, the ability to live fully without needing to document it. In doing so, they create a boundary between their personal reality and the world's opinion. That boundary becomes sacred ground, a place where their true self can breathe. Another aspect of privacy is power lies in energy preservation. Every time you share something online, you invite energy toward it, positive, negative, or neutral. The less you share, the more you contain that energy within yourself. People who move quietly often have a different kind of aura. Their focus feels stronger because it's undiluted. They're not scattering their energy across timelines or threads. They're channeling it into growth, discipline, and purpose. The mystery around them isn't calculated. It's a byproduct of alignment. They don't crave attention because they're already occupied with evolution. Choosing privacy also builds emotional resilience. When your happiness or identity isn't dependent on public perception, you become harder to shake. Criticism, gossip, or misunderstanding lose power because you've removed your validation from external sources. You control the narrative because you don't feed it. This quiet strength allows you to operate from a place of calm authority. Privacy gives you the space to observe instead of react, to plan instead of perform, and to build foundations before anyone even knows there's a project. People who don't post on social media often embody this mindset naturally. They've realized that the less they show, the more they grow. They understand that exposure can be draining, that attention can distract, and that power multiplies when it's protected. Their silence isn't emptiness, it's discipline. They guard their life like it's currency because in many ways, it is. Privacy keeps their peace intact, their goals pure, and their direction steady. They move with the calm confidence of people who know they don't owe the world their transparency, only their truth, and that's something they choose to reveal on their own terms. Intentional living is the quiet discipline of choosing direction over distraction. In a world where every scroll pulls at your attention and every notification demands a reaction, people who don't post on social media often stand apart because they move with purpose. Their days aren't shaped by algorithms or digital approval, they're guided by intention. They understand that time and focus are their most valuable currencies, and they spend both carefully. While others chase moments to share, they create moments to live. Their energy isn't scattered across screens, it's concentrated on goals, growth, and experiences that have real meaning beyond visibility. At the heart of intentional living is awareness. It means being conscious of why you do what you do. Many people post online without thinking, out of habit, boredom, or the need to feel connected. But those who choose not to engage that way have usually learned to pause before acting. They ask themselves whether something truly matters or whether it's just noise. That pause is powerful. It creates space for clarity, for thought, for choice. It turns routine into ritual and reaction into decision. Their lives start to align not with trends but with truth, their own inner compass rather than society's expectations. This kind of living requires discipline because the digital world is built to fragment attention. Every app, every feed, every notification is designed to pull you away from the present moment. Intentional people resist that pull. They don't abandon technology completely. They just control how it uses them. They set boundaries with their attention. They don't need to prove that they're productive. They simply are. Their focus becomes a shield against distraction, and that focus compounds into real progress. They read instead of scrolling, build instead of posting, reflect instead of reacting. Every hour reclaimed from digital noise becomes an investment in their evolution. Psychologically, intentional living shifts a person's relationship with time. When you live reactively, constantly checking updates or posting content, your sense of time becomes fragmented. The day passes in flashes of stimulation, leaving you drained but unfulfilled. People who live intentionally reclaim the flow of their day. They move slower but with precision. They're deliberate about their mornings, mindful of their conversations, and purposeful with their energy. This way of living builds a deep sense of fulfillment because you start to feel connected to your actions. Life stops feeling like a blur and starts feeling like a story you're writing consciously. Intentional living also creates authenticity. When you're not performing for an audience, your choices become purer. You don't need to fit an image or follow a narrative that pleases others. You can experiment, fail, grow, and change direction without public pressure. People who don't post often embrace this freedom. Their progress is private, so it's real. They're not motivated by what looks good. They're motivated by what feels right. That authenticity becomes their foundation, allowing them to live lives that reflect their true values instead of what's trending or expected. There's a quiet confidence that comes with living this way. When you're intentional, you no longer feel the need to chase validation or rush results. You start trusting your process. Each step becomes meaningful because it's chosen, not forced. Intentional living replaces the anxiety of keeping up with the peace of staying true. It teaches patience in a culture addicted to speed. People who live intentionally are often misunderstood. Others might call them distant or detached, but in reality, they're deeply connected to their purpose. They're just not distracted by the noise surrounding it. Another element of this mindset is simplicity. Intentional living isn't about having less, it's about needing less. It's about focusing on what adds value and letting go of what doesn't. People who avoid the social media rush understand that clutter isn't just physical, it's mental and emotional too. Every unnecessary thought, comparison, or digital interaction takes up space. By simplifying what they consume and how they spend their time, they create room for clarity. That clarity allows for creativity, deeper relationships, and a stronger sense of direction. Living intentionally also means being present. Many people document life instead of experiencing it. They record the sunset before feeling its warmth, post their meal before tasting it, or announce their achievement before absorbing its meaning. Intentional individuals move differently. They allow themselves to live fully in each moment. They value presence over proof. This presence becomes a source of peace because it connects them to what's real, the sound of conversation, the texture of experience, the depth of connection. They find fulfillment in being, not just showing. The psychology behind this way of living is simple but profound. When your actions align with your values, you create internal harmony. You stop feeling like you're split between who you are and who you pretend to be. That alignment breeds confidence, focus, and emotional balance. Intentional people don't need to escape their lives through distraction because they've built a life they don't need to escape from. They don't seek stimulation to feel alive. They find meaning in the stillness of purpose. Intentional living is a choice that few make consistently, but those who do often radiate a quiet strength. They move with direction, not drift. They act with clarity, not impulse. They create momentum from discipline, not from attention. Their success might not be loud, but it's lasting. Their lives become proof that when you take control of your focus, you take control of your future. And in a world full of noise, that control is the purest form of power there is. Observation over expression describes a mindset where awareness is prioritized over attention. In a time where everyone feels compelled to share their every thought, move, and feeling, some people choose to sit back, watch, and understand instead of rushing to speak. This isn't silence born out of shyness or fear. It's silence powered by perception. People who don't post on social media often operate from this place. They use observation as a tool for understanding the world and themselves on a deeper level. While others are busy curating moments to be seen, they're studying human nature, reading energy, and learning lessons that can't be captured in a caption. Observation builds perspective. When you're not constantly expressing yourself online, you gain space to listen and analyze. You start to notice details others miss. The tone behind someone's words, the emotion in their silence, the patterns in how people behave when they think no one's paying attention. This heightened awareness gives you insight into people's motives, fears, and desires. Instead of reacting to the world, you start interpreting it. People who observe more and express less often make wiser choices because they understand context before they act. They're not impulsive, they're intentional. That patience gives them an advantage in every aspect of life, business, relationships, creativity, and personal growth. The psychology behind this behavior is grounded in self-regulation and emotional intelligence. It takes discipline to resist the urge to express everything publicly. Social media encourages instant reaction, a quick post, a fast opinion, immediate validation loop. But observers don't fall into that rhythm. They pause before they speak, they think before they share. That pause creates power because it's in that space where understanding grows. They process situations internally before bringing them outward. This internal processing makes them more grounded, less reactive, and harder to manipulate. They don't get swept up by trends or emotional waves because they've trained themselves to step back and see the bigger picture. Being observant also means valuing substance over performance. When you're busy expressing yourself online, it's easy to lose track of authenticity. You start shaping your identity based on what gets attention. But when you're observing, your focus shifts from being seen to seeing clearly. You start to understand what truly matters to you without the influence of outside opinions. Observation allows you to build identity from experience, not exposure. People who spend less time posting and more time watching learn from others' mistakes and victories without having to make them all firsthand. They absorb lessons quietly, applying them in their own lives. Over time, this makes them sharper, wiser, and more self-assured. Observation also enhances creativity. Many thinkers, artists, and innovators thrive in solitude because it gives them room to absorb inspiration from the world around them. When you're not constantly producing content for attention, your mind has the space to connect patterns and ideas in new ways. Observers notice things that most people overlook: the rhythm of everyday life, the subtleties of emotion, the layers of truth behind what's said and unsaid. This depth of perception allows them to create work that feels real and timeless because it comes from understanding, not from trying to impress. There's also a spiritual calm that comes with observation. When you choose to watch instead of perform, your energy becomes more centered. You no longer feel the pressure to prove or display. You start moving through life with awareness instead of anxiety. Observers often develop a sense of inner peace because they're not chasing recognition, they're seeking understanding. This stillness doesn't mean detachment from the world, it's engagement with it on a deeper, quieter level. They experience life fully but without the noise of constant expression. Observation makes people more empathetic too. When you take the time to really see others, to notice what drives them or hurts them, you build compassion. You start to understand that everyone moves through their own struggles, insecurities, and stories. Observers don't judge quickly because they see beyond the surface. They recognize that most people express what they wish to be, not necessarily who they are. That awareness creates kindness. It's a quiet strength that doesn't need to be announced. It's felt in how they move, how they listen, and how they respond. Another key aspect of this psychology is the ability to adapt. Observers learn by watching patterns, and those patterns teach them when to act, when to wait, and when to walk away. This adaptability comes from studying rather than assuming. While others rush into situations based on emotion or pressure, observers gather data not from algorithms but from human behavior. They know that timing is power, and they gain that timing from their awareness. Because of this, they often appear calm in chaos. Their decisions come from observation, not impulse. People who value observation over expression understand that silence is not emptiness, it's presence. It's the art of paying attention without needing attention. They don't measure their impact by how much they say, but by how much they understand. Their stillness allows them to see truths hidden beneath noise, and their restraint gives their actions greater weight when they finally choose to move. In a world where everyone's shouting to be heard, they find their strength in listening, because observation, when mastered, becomes the most powerful form of expression there is. Freedom from comparison is a state of mind that very few people reach in the age of social media. Comparison is one of the quietest but most powerful forces shaping how people feel about themselves today. Every scroll, every post, every story subtly reminds you of where you are versus where someone else appears to be. People who don't post on social media often step outside the cycle entirely. By removing themselves from the constant feed of images and opinions, they create a mental distance that allows them to see life through their own lens. They stop measuring success through filtered snapshots and start defining it through personal growth, peace, and authenticity. The psychology behind freedom from comparison begins with awareness. Many people fall into comparison unconsciously. They don't realize how much of their self-worth has been outsourced to the validation systems built into digital platforms. Every like becomes a tiny hit of dopamine, every comment a small reassurance that they matter. But the same mechanism that brings pleasure also brings pain. When others get more recognition or appear to be doing better, it triggers feelings of inadequacy. Those who detach from social media reduce these emotional highs and lows. which helps them stabilize their self-perception. They no longer ride the roller coaster of comparison because they've stepped off the ride entirely. This mental shift doesn't happen overnight. It often comes after realizing that online comparison is an illusion. People who stop posting begin to see how most digital expressions are curated fragments, not full truths. They understand that what's shown online is often the best 5% of someone's life, polished and edited to appear effortless. Knowing that makes it easier to let go of envy or self-judgment. When you're not constantly exposed to those curated versions of reality, your focus naturally turns inward. You begin to evaluate yourself by your own progress, not by someone else's performance. That inward focus becomes a seed of freedom. Freedom from comparison allows a person to rediscover what genuinely fulfills them. Without the noise of constant external influence, they can ask deeper questions. What actually makes me happy? What does success look like for me? Many people live reactively, chasing the same goals, aesthetics, or milestones they see others pursuing. Those who disconnect from social media free themselves from those silent pressures. They start creating lives that reflect personal values instead of digital trends. This independence brings confidence because it's built on self-definition, not imitation. When people stop comparing themselves, they also experience a healthier relationship with time. Social media speeds up perception. It makes you feel like you're running behind because everyone seems to be achieving something new every day. But when you step away, you remember that real growth takes time. You stop feeling rushed. You learn patience. You understand that everyone's path unfolds at its own pace and yours doesn't need to mirror anyone else's. That realization replaces anxiety with acceptance and competition with contentment. It allows people to move through life with steadier energy, no longer pulled in every direction by others' progress. There's a deep sense of peace that comes with that mindset. When you stop comparing, you stop needing to prove. Your focus shifts from appearance to substance. You care less about how your life looks and more about how it feels. People who live this way often seem grounded because they're no longer chasing shadows of success. They can appreciate others' wins without feeling threatened. They cheer for people sincerely because they've learned that someone else's light doesn't dim their own. This emotional maturity creates a sense of abundance, the belief that there's enough space for everyone to shine. Psychologically, this freedom strengthens self-esteem. When you stop measuring yourself through others' achievements, your sense of worth becomes intrinsic. It's based on who you are, not how you're perceived. This self-assurance makes you more resilient to criticism and less dependent on praise. You become the reference point for your own success. You can celebrate your small victories without needing an audience because you understand their value internally. People who live in this state often radiate quiet confidence, not arrogance, but peace. They move like they have nothing to prove because they've already accepted themselves. Another powerful result of freedom from comparison is creativity. Constant exposure to others' ideas can unintentionally narrow your thinking. You start replicating trends instead of innovating. But when your mind is free from constant comparison, it becomes more original. You begin to explore new ideas, styles, and directions without worrying how they'll be received. This is why many deeply creative individuals choose solitude over exposure. They know that comparison kills imagination. Their detachment from external noise allows their inner voice to grow louder and clearer. Emotionally, this freedom also reduces insecurity. When you're not constantly comparing, you stop feeling like you're behind. You stop apologizing for your journey. You realize that your story is unfolding exactly as it should. This acceptance creates a steady kind of happiness. Not the fleeting joy of validation, but the grounded contentment of self-approval. People who live this way walk differently. Their energy feels lighter because it's no longer burdened by invisible competition. Freedom from comparison doesn't mean indifference. It means self-trust. It means appreciating what others do without letting it dictate your worth. It's the quiet understanding that growth isn't a race and success isn't one size fits all. People who don't post on social media often embody this truth naturally. By choosing to live outside the lens, they rediscover the beauty of their own path, a life measured not by visibility but by authenticity, purpose, and peace. Legacy over lifestyle is a philosophy built on depth instead of display. It's about choosing to build something that lasts rather than something that looks good for a moment. In a world obsessed with aesthetics, where people broadcast curated fragments of their lives to gain attention, there are still individuals who choose to move quietly, investing their energy into purpose rather than presentation. People who don't post on social media often embody this mindset. They're not driven by how things appear, they're driven by what things mean. Their focus isn't on creating moments that photograph well, but on living a life that speaks for itself long after they're gone. The psychology behind value and legacy over lifestyle is rooted in perspective. Lifestyle is about the present, the clothes, the cars, the trips, the social proof. Legacy is about the impact, the ideas, the work, the lessons, the energy you leave behind. People who prioritize legacy see beyond the immediate. They think in decades, not days. They move with an understanding that real success doesn't always announce itself publicly. It's built slowly in silence through consistency and vision. Social media by design encourages instant gratification while legacy demands patience. Those who step away from the constant sharing often do so because they recognize that the most important parts of growth happen off camera. Choosing legacy over lifestyle means understanding the difference between performance and purpose. Lifestyle thrives on image. It's about appearing successful. Legacy thrives on intention. It's about becoming significant. People who live for legacy often reject the idea of performing for validation because they understand how shallow it can be. They've learned that you can have a perfect image and still feel empty. They replace the need to be admired with the need to be useful. They invest their energy into mastering their craft, serving their community, or developing something that will outlast their physical presence. This mindset also reflects emotional maturity. People who focus on lifestyle are often reacting to external validation. They want to be seen, praised, or envied. Those who focus on legacy operate from internal validation. They don't need applause because they're driven by alignment. They work toward goals that matter to them personally, not just socially. This kind of self-driven motivation creates endurance. It allows them to keep going even when no one is watching. While others burn out chasing visibility, they stay consistent because their motivation isn't fragile, it's rooted in purpose. Legacy thinkers move differently. They understand that not everything valuable can be seen. Some of the most powerful work happens behind the scenes, in the quiet hours of focus, in the unshared progress, in the long stretches where results are invisible. These people find strength in that process because they know it's where real transformation happens. They're not competing for attention, they're cultivating excellence. They don't crave to be known right now. They aim to be remembered for what they built, taught, or inspired. This gives their life a deeper sense of direction. There's also a moral grounding in this way of thinking. When you focus on legacy, you start asking bigger questions. What will my actions mean later? How will my choices affect others? What will remain after I'm gone? These questions build accountability. People who don't post much often think this way because they're not distracted by superficial validation. They live by values rather than impressions. Their compass points toward contribution instead of consumption. They're not collecting followers, they're cultivating impact. Legacy over lifestyle also shapes how people measure success. For many, success is visible: the car, the house, the followers, the brand deals. For those who think long-term, success is invisible: peace, purpose, and influence that reaches beyond the self. They measure progress not in likes, but in lessons learned and lives touched. They're builders of foundations, not just curators of moments. This shift in perspective gives them freedom. They don't feel pressured to prove themselves constantly. They're too busy creating things that will speak for them later. Psychologically, this approach creates fulfillment that external validation never can. Lifestyle satisfaction fades quickly because it relies on public attention, which is temporary and unpredictable. Legacy satisfaction grows over time because it's based on meaningful contribution. It's sustained by the quiet knowledge that you're doing something real, even if no one's applauding yet. That knowledge builds peace, a deep, unwavering kind of confidence that doesn't depend on visibility. People who focus on legacy carry that peace with them because they know what they're building matters, even if it's unseen. This mindset also encourages humility. When you live for legacy, you realize it's not all about you. You start thinking about how your actions ripple through others, your family, your community, your field. That awareness makes you move with more intention and less ego. You don't waste energy trying to appear perfect because you're too focused on becoming impactful. Your work, your words, your character, those become the message. People who live this way don't need to remind others of their value. Their presence and consistency do it for them. The difference between lifestyle and legacy is the difference between noise and resonance. Lifestyle fades when attention shifts, but legacy echoes. Those who choose to build legacy understand that patience is part of greatness. They trust that their time will come, and when it does, it will last longer because it was earned. They live like architects, not performers, designing lives that stand strong long after the spotlight moves on. For them, the real reward isn't being seen, but being remembered for something that mattered. Something that outlived the moment and became part of something greater than themselves. At the end of it all, this message isn't about rejecting social media. It's about reclaiming your peace, your purpose, and your power in a world that profits from distraction. The psychology of people who don't post on social media isn't built on secrecy or superiority. It's built on self-awareness. It's about choosing growth over attention, purpose over performance, and meaning over momentary noise. These individuals remind us that the loudest lives aren't always the most fulfilled ones, that real power moves quietly, and real success doesn't always need to be seen. They live proof that fulfillment comes from what's within, that from what's displayed, and that privacy, focus, and authenticity are still revolutionary forms of freedom in a world chasing validation. So as you move forward, remember this: you don't have to show the world everything you're building to prove you're building something great. Protect your peace, trust your process, and let your work speak when it's ready. The world will recognize what's real in its own time. Until then, keep your energy sacred, your goals focused, and your heart aligned with your vision. Thank you for listening, and good luck on your journey. May you move with quiet confidence, grow with intention, and build something timeless that speaks long after the noise fades.